Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Today I'm going to be assembling the rear brakes for the Monza. I purchased a set of Wilwood forged dynolites. The part number is a 140-2119. This version has drilled rotors that are not vented but plain anodized calipers. In the spirit of this channel, I probably could have gone with something a little more low budget. This car was originally built with drum brakes on the rear and G-body brakes on the front. This time around, I figured I probably shouldn't go too cheap and upgrade the brakes. Now, when assembling Wilwood brakes, the instructions read like 1980s VCR instructions. They're very tedious and very long, but I do recommend that you read them and assemble them correctly. Safety wiring is one of my least favorite parts of assembling these brakes. The red Loctite probably would have held, but better safe than sorry. I have both of my rotors assembled now. I had to drill out my rotor hats to fit over my 5/8 wheel studs. Wilwood only makes these rotors to fit over 1/2 inch wheel studs. I've got my rear brakes assembled on this side. I had a hard time getting the rotor to stay in place so I could shim the caliper correctly. I had to throw a couple of lug nut spacers on there and lug nuts on to seat the rotor to the axle to get the caliper shimmed correctly. I forgot to mention, before I assembled the other side, I noticed I had the caliper brackets on incorrectly. I had the right side on the left and the left side on the right. It pays to read the instructions, so now let's assemble this side. I don't know if you guys can see this or not, but the wheel hits the caliper and won't let the wheel go on all the way. So my rear wheels are actually a pair of Weld drag light 15x12 with an 8.5 inch back spacing. I had this brilliant idea to weld the valve stem holes shut, flip the wheels around, re-drill valve stem holes, and I could use them with a 3.5 inch back spacing. Apparently that's not going to work. So I stacked some 5/8 washers between the wheel and the rotor to equal approximately 1/2 inch. That gives me about 1/8 of an inch clearance between my caliper and my wheel. My wheel studs are plenty long enough that I can put wheel spacers between the wheel and the rotor. Looks like I'll be ordering those tomorrow. As I had mentioned in a previous video, this car was built with a Jagster style front end. The Jags front end allows me to use the factory Monza upper and lower control arms, but I did upgrade to a G-body style spindle. The spindles on here are actually 2-inch drop spindles with ball joint adapters to fit the Monza control arms. I've mocked up the Wilwood front brake bracket on the factory spindle. I'm going to have to modify the spindle to get the Wilwood brake bracket to fit, which is going to include cutting the ears off and drilling and tapping the 3 holes to mount the bracket to. This is what my spindle looks like after the modifications. I just need a little bit of paint on here and to bolt the brakes on now. As with the rear brakes, now it's time to assemble the front rotors and safety wire everything. And now that I have my rotors assembled, it's time to pack the wheel bearings. And this is what it looks like with my front brakes installed. Now that I've got these done, I need to do a master cylinder upgrade to handle the 4-piston calipers on the front and rear of the car. And the last thing that needed to be done was to test fit the wheel, because I learned my lesson on the back brakes. Thank you for watching this video. If you like what you see, please subscribe to the channel.